All right, let's talk about multiplication and scaling. So on these problems, what we're going to try to do is to try to see what results are the answers to these expressions, and then seeing if we can find any rules that give us any insight. So the first thing I want you to notice is that the start number here is always the same. So the start number is always 5. That's what we're going to get. That's what we're going to call the start. Then it's being multiplied by a different number each time. That is what we're going to call the factor. Remember that in the last set of problems, we were saying that when two numbers are multiplied, we call those factors that then give us an answer as the product. So since 5 is being multiplied with a different number, we're going to call this the factor that we're multiplying by 5. So then the difference between the 4 sets of problems are just that there are different factors. Let's do the first one together. Grab a calculator, and we're going to type in 5 times, and for the 1/2, we're going to put that in parentheses, 1 divided by 2. Close the parentheses. Go ahead and make sure that your calculator says the same thing on yours. Great. And when you press enter, you should get that the answer is 2.5. So we're going to write that down over here, 2.5. Now, you're going to spend some time just doing all the rest of these on your calculator. And you can pause the video right now to make sure that you're doing that on your own and you're doing it correctly. Unpause when you're done. Great. Hopefully at this point you have pressed all of these and you got to the answers for the 5 times 1 should give you 5. 5 times 1.5 should give you 7.5. And then 5 times 2 should give you 10. Great. Now that that's done, we're going to look at the results. As in, does my answer, is my answer bigger than my original, or is it smaller than my original? So starting with the first one, my 2.5, is it bigger or smaller than my original 5? Well, 2.5 is smaller, so I'm going to say that it's smaller than 5. See if you can answer the rest of these on your own. Pause the video and unpause when you're done. Great. You should see that the first one is equal to 5. And then for these last two, 7.5 and 10 are both bigger than 5. Go ahead and make sure that you have all of these answers. Now, what are the rules then? Why is this one smaller than 5, whereas these are bigger than 5 and this one is equal? Well, it all depends on this factor that you're multiplying to 5. I want you to notice that this factor right here is very special and it creates a number that is smaller than 5. And you might look at this and say, oh, it's because it's a fraction, and you would be partially correct. This is not only a fraction, but it's a fraction that is smaller than 1. So when factor is smaller than 1, which means it's usually a fraction or a decimal. So that might be like 1/3 or 0.45. When you multiply a factor that is smaller than 1, like these, your answer will be smaller. Okay. I'll pause to make sure everyone has time to write that down. Well, what about the second one? What do we notice about this factor that is special that makes it equal to 5? The thing that is special about this is that the factor is 1. So when factor is 1, your answer will not change. And we should know that, right? Like if we did 4 times 1, that should give us 4. If we do 3 times 1, that should give us 3. That should be no surprise. Now, looking at the last one, we notice that if we multiply by 2, it becomes bigger. If we multiply by 1.5, it's also bigger. What is the same between 1.5 and 2? What's the same about these two is that they're not like this one. The reason why this one, the answer is smaller, is because it's less than 1. Well, then why is this the answer bigger? Well, then the factor must not be smaller than 1, and it must not be equal to 1. It must be bigger than 1. So here, when the factor is bigger than 1, so for example, this might be 1.5, it might be 1.2, it might be 2.2, it might be 10. Whenever you multiply a factor that is bigger than 1, your answer will be bigger. Okay, lastly, I want to give you some challenge problems if you have some time. What if we take 5 times, let's give you 3 over 4. Is this going to be bigger or smaller than 5? Choose one of these. What if you had 5 times, say, 3.4? Is this bigger or smaller than 5? Choose bigger or smaller. See if you can do that.